A heavy box slipped and crashed onto the driveway. A man lunged and caught the second one before it went down too, his arms shaking under the weight. Glasses rattled inside. A woman gasped and grabbed the other end, and for a second the two of them just stood there, holding a box of someone's whole life between them, breathing hard. "I've got it," he said. "I've got it. Let go. I've got it." She let go, and she looked at him in a way that made him forget about the box entirely. He had only come to help her carry furniture. That was all. A favor for a woman he barely knew. On the worst day of her life, the day she was finally leaving the house her marriage had died in. His name was Marcus Bell, and he had no idea what this woman was really planning. What she did before that truck pulled away changed his whole life. Stay with me. Marcus Bell was a man who had learned to expect very little. Not because he was bitter. He was not a bitter man. He was just tired, the deep kind of tired that working people know, the kind that sleep does not really fix. He was 37 years old. He drove a delivery truck 5 days a week, and he picked up handyman jobs on the weekends, fixing fences, hauling junk, helping people move. And every spare minute that was left over, he gave to the only two things in the world that mattered to him: his kids. Marcus was a single father. His son, Caleb, was 9. His daughter, Lily, was 7. And their mother had been gone for almost 4 years now. Not dead, just gone, which in some ways is harder to explain to a child. She had decided one day that the life they had built was not the life she wanted, and she had left, and Marcus had been mother and father both ever since. He did not complain about it. There was no point. He just got up every morning at 5, made 2 lunches, braided Lily's hair the best a big-handed man could manage, got the kids to school, drove his route, picked them up, made dinner, helped with homework, read a story, and did it all again the next day. That was his life. It was small, and it was hard, and it was his, and he loved those 2 children more than he had ever loved anything. Romance was not even on the list. How could it be? He barely had time to sleep. The idea of meeting someone, dating someone, opening his life up to someone, it felt like something that happened to other people. People with more time, more money, less baggage. Marcus had made his peace with the idea that it was just going to be him and the kids, and that was going to have to be enough. So when his weekend handyman job sent him to a quiet street on the east side of town one Saturday morning, he was not expecting anything except a few hours of hard work and a little cash to put toward Lily's school shoes. The job was a moving job. He had taken it through one of those local apps where people post odd tasks. The post had been short. Need help loading a moving truck. 1 person, some furniture, lots of boxes. Half day. We'll pay cash. Simple enough. Marcus had done 100 of them. He pulled up to the address. A nice house, nicer than his. A 2-story place with a porch and flower beds that had clearly once been loved and lately had not. There was a moving truck already in the driveway, rented, the back doors open and empty. And standing on the porch, surrounded by boxes, was a woman. She was maybe 35, dark hair pulled back. And even from the driveway, Marcus could see it. That particular kind of tired he knew so well. Not physical tired. The other kind. The kind that comes from the inside. "You Marcus?" she called. "That's me." He climbed out of his truck. "You must be Hannah." She came down the steps, wiping her hands on her jeans. "Thank you for coming. I know it's last minute. Most people don't want to work weekends." "I don't mind weekends," Marcus said. "Keeps me busy." She nodded, and there was an awkward little silence, and Marcus looked around at the boxes, at the house, at the half-dead flower beds, and he understood without being told what kind of move this was. You learn to read it, doing this work. Some moves are happy, young couples, new starts, excitement in the air. And some moves are like this one. Quiet, heavy, a house being emptied not because something good is beginning, but because something has ended. Big house for 1 person, Marcus said carefully. "It won't be 1 person for long," Hannah said. It was mine and my husband's. Ex-husband. As of 11 days ago. She gave a small, tight smile that did not reach her eyes. He got the boat and the truck. I got the house. Neither of us got what we actually wanted, which I guess is how these things go. "I'm sorry," Marcus said. And he meant it. "Don't be. It's the right thing. It's just, She looked back at the house for a moment. It's a lot of years to pack into boxes. That's all. Marcus nodded. He did not push. A man who has had his own life fall apart knows that the kindest thing you can do for someone in the middle of it is not to ask too many questions. Just show up. Do the work. Carry the heavy things so they don't have to. Well, he said, rolling up his sleeves. Let's get you loaded up. Where do you want to start? And that is how it began. A tired single dad and a quiet divorced woman, on a Saturday morning, loading the wreckage of a marriage into a rented truck. Marcus figured it would be a few hours of work and a handshake at the end. He had no idea. They worked. And here is the thing about working alongside someone for a few hours. You learn things about them that no conversation ever tells you. You learn them from how they move, how they handle things, what they keep and what they throw away. Marcus learned that Hannah was strong. She carried her own weight, never once stood back and let him do it all. He learned she was careful with certain boxes and careless with others, and after a while he could tell which was which. The careful ones had her whole heart in them. Photographs, a small wooden jewelry box, a folded quilt that looked handmade. The careless ones were just things. Dishes, books, the stuff of a life that could be replaced. And he learned, without her saying a word, that she was grieving. Not the man. He got the sense, from the few things she said, that the man had not been good to her, not at the end. She was grieving the years, the hope she'd had when she first walked into that house, the family she thought she was going to build there. Around noon, they took a break. Hannah disappeared inside and came back with 2 glasses of iced tea and a couple of sandwiches she'd thrown together. And they sat on the tailgate of the half-loaded truck and ate. And for the first time all morning, she really talked. She told him she'd been married 11 years. That she'd given up her own career, she'd been a teacher, to support her husband's, moving cities twice for his job, putting her own dreams on the back burner again and again, the way people do when they love someone and believe the sacrifice is mutual. And then she told him, quietly, looking at her hands, that somewhere in those 11 years her husband had stopped seeing her, stopped valuing her, treated her, by the end, like furniture. Like something that came with the house. The worst part, she said, is I let it happen. I made myself smaller and smaller for him until there was almost nothing left. And one day I looked in the mirror and I didn't even recognize who I'd turned into. She wrapped both hands around her glass. So this isn't sad, what you're helping me do today? I know it looks sad, but it's not. It's me getting myself back. Marcus listened, and then he told her something he had never told a stranger, maybe never told anyone. When my wife left, he said, I thought it was the end of my whole life. 2 little kids, no warning, just gone. I didn't know how I was going to get up the next morning, let alone raise them. He turned his glass slowly in his hands. But you know what I figured out? Getting left was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And being their dad, just me, all in, every day, turned out to be the best. Both things are true. The worst thing and the best thing, same story. He looked at her. So I get it. What you're doing. Getting yourself back. It's not sad. It's brave. Hannah looked at him for a long moment. And something shifted in her face. Something opened. Just a crack. You're not what I expected, she said softly. What did you expect? I don't know. Some guy who'd load the truck and not look at me twice. She smiled, a real one this time. Not someone who'd actually understand. They finished their lunch. They went back to work. But something had changed in the air between them, and they both felt it. That rare thing. 2 people recognizing each other, really seeing each other, the way you almost never do with a stranger. By late afternoon, the truck was nearly full. The house behind them was nearly empty. And Marcus, hauling the last of the big furniture up the ramp, felt a strange reluctance settle over him. He did not want the job to end. He could not remember the last time he had not wanted a workday to end. But he was a professional, and this was a job, and the woman had a truck to drive and a new life to start, and he had 2 kids waiting for him at his sister's place. So he loaded the last chair. He closed up most of the truck, and he started to do what you do at the end of a job. He pulled out the little notebook where he kept his hours, ready to settle up, shake her hand, and drive back to his own life. That's about everything, he said. Just a few small boxes left on the porch. I'll grab those, and you'll be all set. You did good today. Fresh start and all. Thank you, Hannah said. She was looking at him with an odd expression. Marcus, before you go, can I ask you something? Something kind of strange. Sure, he said, not thinking anything of it, flipping his notebook closed. He figured she wanted to ask about another job. A handyman thing at the new place, maybe. He had no idea what she was actually about to say. Why did you really take this job? Hannah asked. Marcus blinked. What do you mean? It's work. I take the work that comes. No, I mean. She took a breath, like she was steadying herself to say something she'd been holding all day. I picked you. On the app, there were 6 people who offered. Some of them cheaper than you. Some with better reviews. She paused. I picked you because of your profile picture. You had your 2 kids in it. And I thought, a man who puts his kids in his work photo. That's a man I can trust. And just like that, the whole day turned. Because this was not about a truck anymore, or boxes, or a half day of cash work. Marcus suddenly understood that he had walked into something he did not understand, that this quiet woman had chosen him on purpose, for a reason she had been carrying around all day, and he had no idea what it was. Hannah, he said slowly. What's going on? She sat down on the tailgate. Her hands were shaking now. I'm not moving to an apartment across town, she said. That's what I tell people, because it's easier. But it's not true. I'm leaving the state tomorrow morning. I've got a job lined up 400 miles from here. A teaching job, my old career, the thing I gave up. I'm starting over completely. New town, new life. Nobody who knows me. Nobody who knows what I let myself become. Okay, Marcus said carefully. That's brave. That's good. But I don't understand what that has to do with. I'm scared, she said, and her voice cracked. I am so scared, Marcus. I've never done anything alone in my whole life. I went from my parents' house to my husband's house. I have never once just stood on my own. And tomorrow I'm supposed to get in that truck by myself and drive 400 miles into a life where I don't know a single soul. And I have spent all week telling myself I'm brave and strong and I can do it. And the truth is I'm terrified I'm going to get halfway there and turn around and come back, because being alone is so much scarier than being treated like nothing. Marcus sat down next to her. He did not say anything. He just let her get it out. If you're still with me, and you're pulling for these 2 the way I am, do me a favor and tap that subscribe button. Because what this woman asked next, and what this single dad did about it, is the whole reason I wanted to tell you this story. Now stay with me. So here's my strange question, Hannah said, wiping her eyes, half laughing at herself. And you can absolutely say no. You'll probably think I'm crazy. But you're the first person in years who's actually seen me. Who's talked to me like I'm a real person and not furniture. And I needed to ask, before I drive away and never see you again. She turned and looked at him. Would you and your kids ever think about, no? That's too much. Forget it. She shook her head hard. I don't even know you. I can't ask you to. Ask me, Marcus said quietly. Hannah took a breath. There's a whole life waiting for me 400 miles from here, she said. A good one, I think. A real fresh start. And the only thing wrong with it, the only thing, is that I'm going to be facing it completely alone. And I sat here today watching you, the way you are, the way you talk about your kids, and I thought, what if he didn't have to grind himself into dust here either? What if there was a better life out there for him and his kids too? Better schools, a real house, cheap, in the town I'm going to. A fresh start for all of us. She laughed, embarrassed. I don't mean anything improper. I mean, what if we both started over? In the same place. And weren't so alone doing it. I know it's insane. I've known you for 6 hours. Marcus stared at her. He should have said no. Any sane man would have said no. You do not uproot your children's whole lives for a woman you met that morning. But he was not thinking about that. He was thinking about the grind. The 5 a.m. mornings. The route. The handyman jobs that never quite added up. The town where his own marriage had died and where everyone knew his business. He was thinking that maybe, just maybe, the universe did not hand a man a feeling like the one he'd had all day for no reason at all. That, Marcus said slowly, is the craziest thing anybody's ever said to me. Hannah's face fell. I know. I'm sorry. Forget I didn't say no, Marcus said. He did not say yes that day either. He was a father. He could not be reckless. He had 2 kids whose whole world depended on him making good decisions. But he did not say no. What he said was, "Let me think. Let me really think. And let me talk to my kids." And Hannah, who had braced herself for a flat rejection, nodded and wrote down her new address and the name of the town and her phone number and handed it to him with a hand that was still shaking. "The job starts in 2 weeks," she said. If it's crazy, if you come to your senses tonight, I completely understand. But if you don't, if by some miracle you don't," she smiled. "There's a house 2 streets over from mine for rent. I drove past it online 100 times. Good school district. I thought you should know it's there." Marcus drove home that evening with a piece of paper in his pocket that felt like it was burning a hole right through to his skin. He picked up his kids from his sisters. And that night, after dinner, he did something he had never done before. He sat his 9-year-old and his 7-year-old down at the kitchen table, and he talked to them like they were people whose opinion mattered. Because it did. He told them about his day. About the nice lady who was scared to start her life over alone. About the town 400 miles away. About the house with the good schools. He did not tell them everything. They were kids, but he told them the shape of it. A big change. A fresh start. Far away from everything they knew. Scary and exciting and a real chance for something better. And then he asked them what they thought. Caleb, 9 years old and serious as a judge, thought about it for a long time. Then he said, "Are you happy, Dad? When you talk about her, you look happy. You don't usually look happy." And little Lily, 7, climbed into his lap and said, "Does the new house have a yard?" "Our house doesn't have a yard." Marcus laughed, and his eyes stung, and he held his daughter, and he looked at his son, and he understood that his kids, his wise, resilient, wonderful kids, were telling him something he was too scared to tell himself. He called Hannah that night. "We're not promising anything," he said, "but we'd like to come see the town. All 3 of us. This weekend. Would that be all right?" The sound she made on the other end of the line, half laugh, half sob, was something he would remember for the rest of his life. They drove up that weekend. And the town was real, and the house with the yard was real, and the schools were good, and the rent was low, and Hannah showed them around with a nervous, hopeful joy that lit her up from the inside. The kids ran through the empty rental house, picking out bedrooms. Caleb found a park down the street. Lily found a cat in the yard and fell instantly, completely in love. And Marcus stood in the doorway of a little house in a town he'd never heard of 2 weeks before, watching his children laugh, watching this woman watch his children, and he felt something he genuinely thought he had lost the ability to feel. He felt hope. They did not rush it. That is the important part. Marcus and Hannah were both grown people with scars, and they did not throw themselves into anything foolish. He and the kids took the house 2 streets over. Hannah took her teaching job. They started their separate fresh starts, in the same place, 2 struggling people who had decided not to be alone anymore. But of course, 2 streets is not very far. And dinner at one house is easier than dinner at 2. And kids who have found a new friend do not like to be separated. And a man and a woman who had recognized each other across a half-loaded moving truck on the worst day of one of their lives. Well, you can guess how that goes. Slowly, carefully, real. It was the best decision Marcus Bell ever made. And he almost did not make it. He almost loaded that last box, shook her hand, and driven back to his small, hard, lonely life, and never known what he'd missed by inches. They were married 2 years later. There was no rush to it, and that was exactly why it lasted. Marcus and Hannah built it the slow way, the right way, brick by brick, shared dinners that turned into shared weekends. 2 households that became one only when all 4 of them were ready. The kids led the way as much as the grown-ups did. Caleb and Lily, who had lost a mother, found in Hannah someone who chose them, on purpose, every single day. And Hannah, who had spent 11 years being made to feel like nothing, found a man and 2 children who looked at her like she was everything. She got her career back. She stood in front of a classroom again, the thing she'd given up, and she was good at it. And she came home lit up the way she had not been in years. Marcus found steady work too, Turned out a reliable man who could fix anything was in short supply in a small town, and before long he had more handyman jobs than he could handle, working for himself, setting his own hours, home every night for dinner. Every night for dinner. That was the thing that got him. The grind was gone. The 5 a.m. desperation was gone. He sat down at a table every single evening with a woman who loved him and 2 kids who were thriving, in a house with a yard, in a town that had felt like a miracle and turned out to be just a good decision he'd been brave enough to make. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Hannah would tease him about that first day. "You were going to shake my hand and leave," she'd say. "Admit it. You had your little notebook out. You were ready to drive off into the sunset and never think about me again." "I was doing my job," Marcus would say every time. And instead, he'd say, pulling her close, "I got the whole rest of my life." He never forgot how close he came to missing it. That was the thing he carried with him, the thing he tried to teach his kids as they grew, that the best things in life almost never come labeled. They come disguised as ordinary days, as favors for strangers, as crazy questions you have every right to say no to. And that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is not turn away from the hard thing, but say yes to the good thing, even when it's terrifying, even when it makes no sense, even when you've only known it for 6 hours. Hannah had asked a strange question on the tailgate of a moving truck on the worst day of her life, because a tired single dad had been kind to her and really listened. She had been so sure he would say no. He had not said no. And 2 broken families, who started that day as complete strangers, became the one thing every single one of them had been missing. They became home. Years later, when people asked how the 2 of them had met, and people always asked because they were the kind of couple that made you want to know, Hannah would smile and say the same thing every time. "I hired him to help me leave my old life behind," she'd say, reaching for Marcus's hand. "I just didn't tell him I was planning to take him with me."